Thanks for watching the first season of My Adventures with Superman. Season 2 is in production now. Yes, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go!
Round of applause for the My Adventures with Superman crew. Thank you so much for giving us a wonderful Season 1. Congratulations on Season 2! Let's go, and hopefully more to come after that, right? To some of you, it may not be a surprise because they were actually greenlit for both seasons already. Woohoo! Yeah! Well, according to thedirect.com, no way, it got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is not real, I think. So, Adult Swim and MAwS initially confirmed development for Season 2 only one day after the first episode's premiere. Really? That's awesome! First episode, the first 2 episodes is like its own arc, I think, right? So it says it's currently in development, given that the series voice actors seemingly recorded lines for the first 2 seasons at the same time. Season 2 could potentially hit Adult Swim and MAwS as early as 2024. And by that, they mean like mid or late 2024, right? Usually, with the likely time frame being sometime in the summer. Yeah, generally with animated shows, it takes at least like a year to produce a season. As for what will happen in the next 10 episodes, the season 1 finale is already in the room. Diving into it. Alright, so that is the news. A little background. I found this show just browsing HBO Max. No, this is not sponsored, but hey, streaming services, call me. And I love DC, I love superheroes, and before I got into this show, I was more into Batman, who's my main squeeze. I grew up with the 2004 The Batman series, and I loved every single thing about that cartoon. I loved the designs, I loved the writing. Then again, I did rewatch it when I was older, so I'm sure child me did not understand all that. So I saw this on MAwS, and I was pretty busy at the time, so I just added it to my list and forgot about it. Then one day I logged back onto MAwS and see like the front banner advertising the show, at least like to me specifically. And then I noticed something really important. So it's Superman, okay? Bride carrying a female character. Then I look at the title, My Adventures with Superman. And I thought, wait, is this for the women? Is this for the women? And that was what made me press play. You know, it kind of made me think, okay, maybe this kind of panders to women a little bit more. Maybe it's heavier on the romance. Maybe it just romanticizes Clark more than like maybe a regular superhero show would. I know it wasn't the main intention, or was it? This show has so much fan service for women. Not in a bad way. They just make Clark seem like the perfect man in a way. And I don't mean like a superhero sense. I'm also not talking about the typical perfect man in like a lot of romance novels and games and whatnot. Like stoic hot guy, hot CEO, rich guy who's like still abusive, I don't know. I'm talking about just a guy with the absolute kindest heart and, well, infinite strength. I think that's what really makes him so special and so lovable. Even with all this limitless power, he literally could have anything. He could destroy cities, he could kill anyone he wants, but he chooses to just be a good person instead. I think it's generally believed that it's because of his foster parents, right? How they raised him. But back to talking about the series. If you clicked this video, most likely you've seen the show or at least know of Superman. So I'm not going to dive too deep into explaining his backstory. But I will start talking about a common criticism people have of Superman is that he's basic and boring because he has no vulnerabilities. And whenever I see that argument, I always say, that's the point. That's the point of his character. The fact that he is seemingly invincible, and the fact that he is kind of the icon of superheroes. I mean, I still wouldn't say that was the point of when the original creators made him, but I would say that he's kind of evolved into that. He's kind of evolved to be the symbol of superheroes now. And I feel like there's just so many heroes that kind of not 100% copy him, but they kind of have the same general design, you know? But it's kind of hard not to copy it because it's like, I don't know, it works great for what it's made for, you know? And I will admit, I usually dislike characters that are like that are perfect and have no weaknesses, seemingly, you know? And I usually want to see the characters suffer. I usually want to see them go through issues, especially issues they've brought on by themselves. and overcome them, of course. When it comes to Superman though, it's just kind of refreshing. Like, maybe he does seem friendly and approachable too. He's not just this perfect statue of a character. Like, he's good at heart, and even with all the strength in the world, he still decides to use it just to help people, not necessarily for his own gain, even though sometimes he does in the stories. I already liked Superman, but this show made me love him. And it made my siblings love him too, because I got them into it. It's so funny. Like, I've made him the dream man for me and my siblings. This series is definitely more of a genuine emotional take on Superman, especially compared to the other cartoons where he's already Superman, you know? He's already in that superhero role in which he has to be stoic, in which he has to be a strong face for the general people. And I really love that this series is deciding to take on Clark's early days. Early days of him starting to fill Superman's shoes, the Superman we all know and we're all familiar with. And so it's really, really nice and even like adorable to see him grow into that familiar image that we're all used to. That and plenty of other reasons exist for why I love this show. Another reason is it's not just an adult superhero cartoon where crazy action is happening with no real emotional character development. Like, it just feels it's written deeper than that. A lot of like adult superhero cartoons I feel are, I don't know, they're just kind of like just testosterone on the screen from start to finish. Even though like that's okay if you're in the mood for that, you know, if that's okay if that's why you even like shows like that. I mean, I'll say like there's lots of shows I've watched where I'm watching it for the action, you know? I don't really care too much if there's like other like side plots or whatever, you know? I just want to see like people fire off cool powers and whatnot. But for me, the shows that kind of stay in my heart, stay in my mind, are the ones with a lot of likable emotional development with the characters. This show is also taking on the concept that Clark knows nothing about his past, which I feel that's kind of like, that's realistic. That's definitely much more realistic than all of a sudden Clark recognizing and understanding his Kryptonian roots. You know, I really like this approach because one, it welcomes almost anyone to the media. You don't have to know anything about Superman before watching it. Number two, it's also entertaining for the fans that do know everything about Superman. And as a veteran fan, you get to see young Clark stumble into this Superman mold that's familiar to all of us. So it's a new take, but it's also taking on familiar territory, but it's still refreshing. It's not just a simple layout where Clark is magically Superman already with all his powers. No, he grows and learns. And I really like that he kind of gets each power over time. Within season 1, I feel like that development is a little fast though. Like, he kind of doesn't have like most of the powers already. I don't know. I've also stumbled upon a series of posts on Tumblr pointing out a lot of Easter eggs that happen in this show, actually. And so if you're curious about that, check that out. Maybe I'll put a link in the description. But that shows that this team working on Superman, they're not just like random animators they hired. Maybe they've been with Warner Brothers for a while, maybe they haven't, but I feel the studio is trying really hard to put in all these fun Easter eggs and not really being too overconfident, I guess, in remaking Superman. Like, a lot of shows, a lot of directors, a lot of movie makers, whatever, when they're taking on an old concept, they kind of want to go into a bold direction, but it kind of ends up bad still. Like, because maybe they're trying to push their own ideas a little too hard and maybe it's straying too far from the original spirit of the character or story. But I feel the animators and the writers on this show, they are choosing not to like go too crazy with like developing a new kind of image or show for Superman, but also kind of still remain, it's kind of like making their own house in the neighborhood. Like, it's still within the neighborhood, it's still in a familiar area, right? But it's its own unique house, I guess. And number 3 for why I like that they're taking on his early days is because it makes his growth more believable. How is he automatically supposed to understand Kryptonian language without ever growing up in an environment that's spoken. And of course, how do his biological parents automatically know English in order to speak to their son? Like, I will admit, I'm not sure at what point in the comics the language was introduced, but maybe it was just like comic logic, fiction logic, I guess, that they just understood each other already for the plot. This is the one thing that does frustrate me though. I don't count this as a criticism, just fan reaction, but it makes me frustrated that he can't understand his father, or actually that he doesn't even know that's his father. Like, it's so like it's kind of heart-wrenching. And then what happened at the end of season 1, I'm not going to mention because it's spoilers, but if you saw it, you know what I'm talking about. Another aspect this show has is the heavy focus on romance. Since episode 1, it was there. Other superhero content has romance, of course, but it's always such a minor part of the plot. It's always like, oh, it's like a reward for the hero at the end. I know certain superheroes have had multiple partners throughout their lives, but I feel like very, very often, usually the superhero has like one main love interest and they kind of only date that love interest, or like they always like magically end up together. I don't hate ships. I don't hate like the fact that they do have one, but it just feels a little too easy, I guess, a little too Disney. I don't know, I just kind of prefer more like, I just prefer stories with more of a realistic development, both in like character growth and like romance. And usually it's not really there for the audience to enjoy the progress of the romance. I know some movies do it, but in My Adventures with Superman, we get to see our super-powered hero be totally smitten and just head over heels for his love interest, Lois Lane. And very rare, we get to see that love interest give that same attention back. They're not just left in the dark the whole time, and then one day they confess and get together. No, since day 1, she's kind of like him too. I will say I didn't expect a romance to develop that fast though. I don't hate it because we get to see more cute moments of Clark and Lois love, but I just was not expecting it to progress that fast. To be honest though, who wouldn't fall in love with him? Speaking about that, I introduced this show to my siblings. They fell in love with him too. It's so funny. He really is a dream boy. And I also really like that they went with short hair for Lois. I love short-haired characters, especially women. I absolutely love what they did with her character, like her personality. She's so passionate and unexpected. She's such a great character. I also like what they did with Jimmy. Like, they definitely gave him more personality than I see in other renditions of Jimmy, if any. It was especially genius to have him be a conspiracy theorist, but actually have all those conspiracies be true about the DC world. It's so funny. It's so perfect. It's like it comes back full circle to the story. Those are just some thoughts I've had on My Adventures with Superman. I have no idea what will happen in season 2. It feels like it's so early, but it's not. What kind of crazy stuff's gonna happen? We already had like a touch of crazy in season 1, so I just hope maybe it's done in a way where it's like there's new developments, but it still leaves some room for a 3rd season. If you'd like to hear more about my thoughts, leave a comment. I have other animation related videos. This is an art channel where I post things related to art and animation. I will be posting reviews. If you like what I do, check out the rest of my channel. Feel free to also check out my gaming channel. Depending on when this was uploaded, I may or may not have gaming videos out yet. Currently, I am playing Breath of the Wild and Cafe Enchant. Stay tuned for more nerdy stuff like this. Thank you!